So this is a review over Chapter 2. It is the 4th exam review we are working on, so that's why it says Chapter 2 Exam Review 4. So the 4th total review. You had 2 from Chapter 1. This is the second one from Chapter 2 for a total so far of 4. We're going to go through problem by problem. I'm going to go kind of quickly because I'm assuming you all have these done, and hopefully most of them are correct. So what you should be doing today isn't necessarily going step by step with me, just sort of making sure yours matches mine, okay? So if you think I'm going a little fast and you need me to go slower, just let me know. But if not, I'm just going to go through these as quick as I can. Number 1, we're undoing adding 5, so we subtract 5. That leaves us with x equals 7 minus 5 gives us a 2. Number 2, I need to undo adding 4, so I'm going to subtract 4. That gives me x equals, they are both negative, so I can add them and keep the negative sign. I get negative 16. Jump up to number 5, I have to undo subtracting 6. The opposite of subtracting is adding, so I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That gives me z equals negative 5 plus 6. The signs are different, so I subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the larger number. So it's going to be a positive 1. Number 6, I need to do the opposite of subtracting 15, which is adding 15. So on the right side, I'm left with just the x. On the left side, I have negative 1, since the signs are different, so you subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the larger number. Now, on your final, this will not be an option. I don't write the numbers in front, I write the x in the front. So you need to know that that's the same thing as x equals negative 1. Alright, we'll just finish off the ones on the board. The opposite of, or it's not really the opposite, I shouldn't say that. The inverse of multiplying by 17 is dividing by 17. So that leaves me with 1x, or just x, equals, and 51 divided by 17 is 3. And last one that's up there right now, we need to undo dividing by 4. The inverse of division is multiplication. So this is going to be z equals negative 52. Raise your hand if you have questions. Here's the rest of the one-steppers. So I need to undo subtracting 5 on number 3. The way I will do that is to add 5 to both sides. So I get y equals 23. Number 4, I want to get rid of the subtracting 7. The inverse of subtracting is adding. So I'm left with just x on the left, and 13 plus 7 is going to give me a 20. We already did 5 and 6, so now we're on number 7. The opposite, why do I keep doing that? The inverse operation of multiplying by negative 14 is dividing by negative 14. Anyone know what that gives us?
Negative 9.
I think it's a 9. Negative 9 equals x. Thank you. But remember, on the final, I will put the x in the front, so it'll be x equals negative 9. Next one, number 8. We are dividing by 7. To undo dividing by 7, we want to multiply by 7. That gives us 56. Jump up to number 11. We want to undo multiplying by 4, so I divide by 4. I get that 3 equals x, or it's better written as x equals 3. And last one-stepper for today, I'm going to multiply both sides by 18. So I get y equals negative 90. Now, I told you I was going quickly because you had a whole day to do these already. These should be done. You should just be sitting there checking your work. This should be a relatively easy day for you. Actually, this section starts out with the worst two-stepper. Alright, the worst two-stepper is the bodyguard problems because you do it a little bit out of order. Remember, you have to get rid of that dividing by 2 on the left side before you can even touch the plus 9. Okay? So it's sort of in a different order than we're used to. Usually we undo the adding and subtracting first. But here we have to work on that 2. It's like 2 is the bodyguard to the 9. You got to get through the 2 before you can even try to touch the 9. Alright? So I need to multiply both sides by 2. All that does on the left is gets rid of the dividing by 2. You still have x plus 9. That hasn't changed at all. But you also need to multiply the right side by 2. So you have a 3 times a 2, that's a 6. Now it's just like a one-stepper, so you subtract 9, we get x equals negative 3. Questions on number 4? No, what was that? Number 13. Um, 14 is a more typical two-step equation. Very straightforward. You just undo adding, subtracting, then you undo multiplying and dividing. So on this one, I want to start with the minus 9. You get rid of subtracting 9 by adding 9. So add 9 to both sides. We're left with 3x equals 30. Then you have to undo the multiplying by 3, so we divide by 3. And I'm left with x equals 10. Alright, 15, another pretty straightforward two-stepper. You got to undo the adding and subtracting first, so I'm going to subtract 7. That leaves me with x divided by 2 equals 3. And then I multiply both sides by 2.
Whoops, made that wrong.
If you made a mistake, go back and fix it. You might want to put a star next to it so you make sure that you study those.
I did times 2 on 2 and 10.
Oh, so you just, yeah, what she did on number 13, just kind of did it out of order. Unless it's bodyguard, like number 13, you always focus on the adding and subtracting first.
Give me one moment, so.
Uh-huh. Yes, because I want everyone's full attention on 16. 16 is maybe even harder than the bodyguard problem. Hey. I'm recording. I don't need whatever word you just used on my YouTube channel. Alright, number 16 could be written as negative x plus 10 equals 15. Those are equivalent statements, okay? This one makes it a lot more clear what your first step would be, right? You have to minus the 10. But I'm not going to write it that way. I'm going to force you to use the original. You still want to get rid of that positive 10. We do that by subtracting. So this leaves us with negative 1x equals 5. Then you undo the multiplying by negative 1. That's a very tricky problem. This would be a really nice one to plug back in and check, because 10 minus negative 5 is like 10 plus 5, and that does match up with the 15, so you know you're good.
I got 25. I did too.
Did you... Oh, if you got 25, it's because you added 10.
Yep.
The subtraction or the negative sign is with the x. The 10 is positive. That's what makes this one so tricky. So to move the 10, you have to subtract it. Tricky, tricky, tricky. If you plug 25 in there and check your work, you would end up with negative 15, so they don't quite match. All right, so be very, very careful on this one. I'll give you a second to copy it down. So the back starts with number 17. Again, in a two-step equation, we want to undo the adding and subtracting first. So I want to subtract 4 from each side. That gives me negative 12x on the left side equals 96. That's what you get when you do 100 minus 4. Then I would need to divide by negative 12. Make sure you're not dropping that negative sign as you're rewriting your steps. That's a positive divided by a negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative, and I believe you get 8.
What? Why I get 108?
Did you add? I'm not sure what you
I
did.
added 12.
Oh, I see. Yeah, careful. That's since it's right next to the x, it's multiplying. So got to be careful on those. All right, number 18. We need to get rid of the minus 5. We'll do that by adding 5 to both sides. So that leaves me on the left side, which is y over 4, equals 7 plus 5 gives me a 12. And then I can multiply both sides by that 4. And that leaves me with just y on the left side equals 48 on the right side. Raise your hand if you need any more explanation on those first 2 on the back. All right, number 19 starts our multi-step equations. So multi-step equations are just like two-step equations, except you have to do one additional step. So if the variables are on the same side of the equal sign, you're just going to combine like terms. If they're on different sides of the equal sign, you're going to pick on the little guy and move it over to the big guy. Or if there's parentheses, you're going to distribute. So those are the 3 options to start multi-step equations. So on number 19, are the x's together or apart? Yeah, they're on the same side. So I'm going to do 4x minus 2x. What does that give me? So I have 2x plus 7 equals 15. Now it is just a regular old two-step equation. You got to subtract the 7. Very good. And then you have to divide by the 2. So I'm going to get a 4. What are your questions? All right, number 20. Are the x's together or different sides? Different sides, same side.
They're on the same side.
They're on the same side, so you can just combine like terms. 8x
10x.
plus 2x is 10x.
10x plus 5
Plus 5 equals 45.
minus 5 on each side is going to equal 40. Then you're going to do 40 divided by 10. I think. Yeah. Yeah.
So 4 is the final answer?
Yeah.
I agree.
Write it down.
All right, number 22. Same side or different sides?
Same sides.
It's different.
It's on different
Look at
sides.
the
They're gonna
big
bring it
giant blue line down the
forward. It's on
problem.
different sides. They're going to bring it forward.
Yeah, you have an x on this side and you have an x on this side. Pick on the little guy. I'm going to move the 4x. It's currently positive, so I am going to subtract it. And the x has to come with it. You're subtracting 4x. Now you can only subtract x's from x's. So write it right under the x on the other side. 6x minus 4x gives me 2x. And then everything else just falls into place. So plus 16. The tricky one on this is to keep the negative with the 20. We haven't used the negative yet, so it stays with the 20. The sign always stays with the term right behind it.
It's going to be minus 16. I did that.
So yeah, you're going to have to subtract 16 from both sides. Now check it out. The 20 is negative, so is the 16. So we add the numbers, keep the negative sign. It's a negative 36. I know. Tricky.
I got that right though.
Okay, hold on. Let's finish and then we'll go back for questions. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. So x equals negative 18. Now, somebody commented, but a negative and a negative makes a positive. That's only when you're multiplying or dividing. When you're adding, 2 negatives stays negative.
Same sign, add and keep different signs.
You're going to be a YouTube sensation. All right, last one on the board. At the moment, we have to start by distributing. So to get rid of the parentheses, I multiply the x by 5, and I multiply the 1 by 5. Now, you can write that step out, or some of you are getting really good at distributing. You could jump right to the step that looks like this. Okay, so you can write out the multiplication step like this, or you can go straight from here to here and do the multiplying in your head. I don't really care which way you do it. Remember, the final is multiple choice anyway, so I won't even be able to see your steps. So do whatever works for you.
Hey, so we not required to write the steps.
Nope, no steps needed on the final. I won't even know.
Oh,
It's multiple choice.
so I can just type this into the calculator.
I'm not sure how you would type an equal sign into a calculator, but give it a shot. All right, back to the board. 10 minus 5 is 5, and that equals 5x. when you divide both sides by 5, you get that 1 equals x. That would not be an option on the final, but x equals 1 would be. Number 21. Shh, guys. Number 21, we have 3x on one side, we have 2x on the other side. So I'm going to pick on the 2. So I'm going to subtract 2x from the left. Those are gone. But I have to subtract 2x on the other side where I see the x's. So 3x minus 2x, that gives me 1x. Then everything else falls into place. So minus 7 equals 6.
So plus 7.
Then I want to add 7 to both sides. So 1x equals 13. Now, I would need to divide both sides by 1. Is dividing by 1 going to change anything? No, 1x is the same thing as x. So we're actually already done on this one. X is 13. When you see parentheses in an equation, you have to distribute before you undo any operation. So I am multiplying through by a negative 1 here. So again, you can write out the multiplication step, or you can do it in your head. I don't really care. Do what works for you, though. If you're bad at doing math in your head, then write it out. If when you write things out, you drop negative signs and you can do it quicker in your head, then do it in your head. It is up to you. You need to start figuring out what works for you. I like to write it out, though, so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to end up with negative 1x. I'll have plus negative 4. Well, plus negative 4 is the same thing as minus 4, and that's going to equal negative 6. So I got my line of equalities all cattywampus. All right, next I need to undo subtracting 4, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. That gives me negative 1x equals negative 2. Then I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. And x is going to equal 2.
Hey, we're almost done.
Any questions? All right, the last two are pretty simple. This is where you're just plugging the number in for the variable and deciding if it works. If it works, you say yes. If it doesn't work, you say no. So negative 2 times negative 5 squared plus 4 equals 54. We need to do exponents first. So that's positive 25. So negative 2 times positive 25 plus 4 equals 54. Did you say 50 or negative 50? Yeah, negative 50 plus 4. So we're off by a negative sign, right? Over here we're getting negative 46. Over here we're getting 54. So this is clearly a no. You have to get a true statement for it to be a solution. So this one's a no. Was that a sneeze? Oh my goodness.
It was about to come out. I stopped it.
It didn't sound. That was you. That was the sound of you stopping it? All right. We are almost done. Try to keep your bodily functions under control for just a second. We are plugging 2 in on the 2 places we see an X. Now, usually on these, one side is already simplified. You're only really doing math on one of the 2 sides. Here, though, you got to do the order of operations on both. So think of the sides separately. On the left, you want to start by multiplying. And then you add. So on the left side, we're getting 49. On the right side, you do parentheses first. Then you'd multiply. So I'm still getting a 49. So is this the solution?
Yes.
Yes. So be careful on that one. Raise your hand if you have any questions on this review. This is the last homework assignment that you will have over Chapter 2. So if you are struggling, now is the time to ask.